It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind. Oh, that looks beautiful to me.
Everyone knows those famous words uttered on the moon some 239,000 miles away, but not everyone knows about the technology that helped us get there.
All engine running.
For thousands of years, humans have looked up into the stars. The heavens have always hung above us for as long as we've been around, intertwining with our culture for millennia. It wasn't until the last few hundred years or so, humans took to the skies and entered the final frontier using refined rocketry science. (1898) is considered the birth year of modern rocketry when a Russian teacher, Konstantin Solovsky, proposed the use of rockets for space travel. In 1903, he published a paper describing liquid propellants rather than gunpowder or TNT to be used for propulsion. A decade later, in the United States, Robert H. Goddard, an American physicist, began experimenting with solid rockets to reach higher altitudes than before. After a few attempts, he came to the same conclusion as Solovsky. Liquid fuel would be required for rockets to go higher. More research was done with the possibility of space travel using rockets when in 1942 the first modern rocket was launched. Destination: Paris. The V-2 rocket is considered the precursor to modern rockets using liquid ethanol and oxygen for propulsion compared to the V-1 rocket, a pulse jet-powered winged missile. It had a launch test and reached an estimated 200 kilometers vertically, 100 kilometers past the edge of space. Sadly, the V-2 rocket was further developed and used by the Nazi regime to kill some 7,000 civilians from Paris, London, and Antwerp. It killed around 20,000 Jewish concentration camp workers in the development and manufacturing of it. At the end of World War II, the now nuclear-armed America and Soviet Union had a crack in their relationship. They worked together to defeat the Axis powers, but with different ideologies and systems, they pushed the two apart. The Cold War was centered around the growth of space and science exploration. The Soviets took the lead with launching of Sputnik 1 and the satellite putting the first man-made object into space. America pressed on in development with its own rocket programs, making things such as the Viking and Vanguard rocket programs. Wernher Von Braun was the director of NASA's Flight Center and put his rocket background working with the Nazi regime to develop the V-2 and his hard work in developing, testing, and flying new and better rockets for America. President Kennedy in 1962 declared America was going to the moon, and NASA kicked in overdrive to get us there.
Why 35 years ago, fly the Atlantic? Why does Reich play Texas? We choose to go to the moon. We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard.
Using the 363-foot-tall Saturn V rocket designed by Wernher Von Braun, along with 1.9 million gallons of liquid oxygen and kerosene, all gratefully paid by the federal government, 3 American men were launched out of the atmosphere into space propelled by 7.2 million pounds of thrust, setting a 3-day journey from Earth to its closest neighbor, the moon. In one of the largest televised events, 600 million people around the world watched on July 20th, 1969, the first human step foot on another heavenly body, all thanks to the power of science and rocketry. With the moon landing, rocketry entered the limelight and became a rapidly growing scientific field. The Shuttle program was made by NASA in the 1980s to start a reusable rocket system for cheap space travel. The pop culture icon of rocketry and the space shuttle was cemented throughout the 80s and 90s, only adding to the implications of rocketry through history. Today, rocketry is still a widely popular subject and is used to do countless things from launching satellites to ferrying people to the International Space Station. Rocketry has come a long way from its ancient beginnings as a glorified firework. With the 20th century now history, the 21st gives us a bright future to look forward to. Probably the largest advancement in rocketry is the inclusion of private companies entering space. Although both the US and USSR used private industry to construct rockets in the past, no private company had ever constructed and flown their own vehicles. Although there have been earlier companies started, the most notable are SpaceX, Blue Origin, and Rocket Lab. Along with the startup of private companies entering space, other advancements have been made. NASA unveiled its Super Heavy Space Launch System rocket they plan to use in the future. SpaceX, a few years ago, unveiled the Starship and Starship Super Heavy, planning to ferry humans to Mars. Rocket Lab made headlines when they invented the world's first 3D printed rocket engine that uses a new lean electric motor to pump fuel and oxidizer into the combustion chamber versus typical methods. Another exciting rocketry-related topic is spin-offs that come from space research and rocket development. When the space race is going on, power tools, baby food, and even Velcro were released to the public as commercial products that came from innovations thanks to rocket science. In the future, we can expect a lot more of these technologies to arise thanks to improvements in rocketry. In conclusion, rocketry has and is still one of the most influential aspects of science that impacts our entire species. Rocketry has given us new hopes and visions, things thought impossible came true, and we reached new heights with something as monumental as the moon landing. Humans have always had a desire to explore the unknown and space beyond our home planet. The knowledge and innovation alone from rocketry has allowed us to move forward, and I hope for its continued advancement to propel humans into the stars.